crime is never just black and white. It's a web of motives, choices, and consequences. Every act of wrongdoing brings with it a conundrum. What drives a person to cross the line? Is justice always just? In a world where truth is often buried beneath layers of lies, solving the puzzle becomes as dangerous as the crime itself.
Tanuj Solanki is a celebrated author whose sharp, thought-provoking narratives have earned him a widespread acclaim. His debut, Diwali in Muzaffarnagar, won the Sahitya Akademi Yuva Puraskar. He is also the founder, editor of the Bombay Literary Magazine, a vital space for contemporary Indian fiction, poetry, and translations.
Asako Yuzuki, a culinary mastermind of storytelling, blending the richness of Japanese culture with a subtle spice of psychological intrigue. Her latest novel, Nairupashi no Joshikai, The Nile Perch Women's Club, bagged the prestigious Yamamoto Shugoro Prize in 2015.
Shinie Antony, with a sharp wit and an unflinching eye for human complexities, she crafts narratives that oscillate between the deeply personal and the unsettlingly universal.
Welcome both of you, Asako and Tanuj, and you, Ankit. Ankit will be translating Asako. I must tell you that I have not read these books long back. Both are new books. Tanuj's book is also new. I read them the beginning to maybe half in her case and the first 2 chapters of Tanuj's, and I can't tell you how interesting and how wonderfully both are written. They're very different. They're written, of course the placement itself is very different. Tanuj is written it based in India. Asako's book is story is based in Japan. But you know, the word crime has been approached by both of them in very, very unique, very extremely interesting ways. And I think the first crime that I have to accuse them of personally is keeping me awake and sleepless because of the quality of their writing. Fantastic quality of their writing. So my first question is that, you know, these are not typical crime thrillers. Tanuj, your book has so much of dialogue and so much of the local flavor, as you yourself said. You know, you've very cleverly said that in the beginning itself, that it's not written in English, but a character in the book translated it into English. And in her book, Asako's book, there is a whole thing about a journalist meeting a so-called murderess in a detention center. So my first question is, how is the crime part of it? You know, is that the heart of it? Is that your entry point? Like, how did you conceive of the crime in your book? It's basically about a man chasing a pot of gold or a bag of money.
In fact, the first line of the novel, my novel, is none of this happened in English. And the context to that is that this is the story of a security guard in Bombay. And I've always been fascinated by security guards, especially because when we see them, you know, do their jobs outside establishments, they're basically guarding entry, and in many cases very vigorously guarding entry to places that they may not be allowed inside themselves. So it's, you really stand at the threshold of a place. In the case of my novel, this person is Sevaram Manji. He's a migrant worker in Bombay, and he's a security guard, and he works outside a very posh cafe in South Bombay. I started with Manji and Manji's profession, and I very clearly knew that you know, he will come to violence in some way or the other. And after that, you know, setting up the crime or set of crimes that would lead him, you know, to pursue the bag of money, etc., was a technical problem, which I had to solve one way or the other. But as to why I wanted to write a crime novel, I had written 3 works before this one, which cannot be called crime novels or crime stories. But I was a big reader of Raymond Chandler around 2016 to 2020. And I was really fascinated by the work, especially the language. And I thought I wanted to do something like that. I had also noticed that in India, especially in Indian English, there is a tradition of the closed door mystery, like 6 or 8 people inside a mansion or a house, and one of them is the murderer. That typically is what we call the mystery novel. So we have written those. And then there is the Sherlock Holmes variants, the detective or the police procedurals that we have written. But we have not written a crime, or at least I thought so, that there are not a lot of crime novels in Indian English where there is no police, so to speak. The crimes are so inconsequential and the crimes are happening between criminals that the police doesn't even get a whiff of it. So it's a different world of its own. And in the US, there is a big tradition of this. And it goes into really dark territory, which we would call noir or, other things. And I thought, okay, there is this, like nobody seems to have done it in Indian English. I by virtue of my reading, I've understood what the tradition is in the US especially. And so let me try it. And so it was largely out of this impulse of let me try this new thing that I ended up writing this novel.
You say, Asako, that you did not intend your book to be a murder mystery or the actual crime which has been committed by Kaji. So, but it does have some connection, or you have the book's blurb says that it's inspired by the Konkatsu killer. So I just wanted to ask how much did this true crime inspire you?
私はこの事件は日本ではとても有名な事件です。でも私はその事件の真相を突き止めたいとか、この事件にはこういった別の解釈があるのではというようなことが書きたかったわけではなくて、この事件は日本ですごく多く報道された事件です。私はその報道のあり方というものに今の日本の現代女性がさらされているプレッシャーが詰まっているような気がしました。容疑者の外見やライフスタイル、美食を楽しんでいること、またはその被害者たちが女性のケアを求めていることを、とても哀れで同情するべきことだとして捉えていること、そういったことがすべて日本の大手のマスメディアが発信していることに私はとても気になりました。だからどちらかというとこの事件をミステリーで描きたいというより、この事件が過剰に報道された日本というものに私は興味を持ったのだと思います。
Obviously, people are taking this as a mystery book, but when Asako-san started writing this book, she was not mean to that they are going to find another chapter of this mystery. Obviously, this was a quite famous incident. This happened in Japan. It's called Konkatsu killer. But she was on the other part where the journalism or the media of the Japan, how they are looking this incident and how they are looking the appearance or the lifestyle of the culprit of that lady which was in the focus. So this was the main thing, and how the pieces are coming. So this is the points of the aspects she wanted to cover in her novel or her story, and the bigger media house or the mass media in Japan, how they behave when such kind of the accidents happens. So this was the main theme.
So while Asako's book is based in Japan, Tanuj's book also has a tenuous Japanese connection, the Japanese restaurant. It starts off with the hero meeting a restaurant hostess outside the restaurant.
So I think it's safe to call her the heroine. The plot starts because our security guard stands outside a posh cafe, and across the road there is a Japanese restaurant, and outside that restaurant there is a woman who stands there. She is the restaurant hostess, you know, like the typically taking reservations and so on and so forth. So our hero looks at this woman and vice versa, and continuously, right, like 6 days in a week and so on and so forth. And the plot sets itself in motion when...
I just wanted to interrupt and say he's got a very delicious line there which he says he notices her, she notices him, and after a point all that noticing had to go somewhere.
Had to go somewhere. And their first interaction happens inside a local pub, you know, like these permit bars in Mumbai, we call them that, like really inexpensive places to drink. And Sevaram Manji, whenever he has his payday, he tries to drink 2 or 3 beers, and this woman after work, she approaches him. And our hero, of course, he doesn't know. So she wears a particular dress when she's standing outside the restaurant, and he's curious and he asks her, what do you wear normally, you know, for your work? And she says, I wear a kimono, right? And he confuses it with something Bengali, you know, like he says kimono, as it sounds like a Bengali making a joke, and she corrects him and so on and so forth. So that's the tiny Japanese connection, if we may call it that. But yeah, that's how the book starts, so to speak.
Would you say that the books that you wrote before this also had a crime angle, or is this the first time that you've gotten into crime?
I think the book before that, for example, was about automation taking away jobs in a financial services company. And one could argue that there was a crime in it too, right? But I think when we speak of crime in fiction, we are making a genre comment. And I think the only work of mine that would sort of be corresponding with that genre definition is this one. And in the previous ones, there might have been bad things done by people, and we could argue that those were crimes, but they are not written to the conventions of a particular genre or so on and so forth.
So how did you come to this genre? Since your previous books can't be strictly described as crime, that's what even I noticed. So how did you come to, when it came to this, how did that, this genre itself attract you?
I wanted to, so in my previous books, I tended to write close to my identity. In the sense that who I am, I mean, as let's say, you could call it middle class person in a certain job, with a certain life experience, and writing around that experience. I come from Muzaffarnagar, a small town in western Uttar Pradesh. So one of my books is about how it was growing up there, then another book was about working in Bombay. But I thought that I wanted to write outside my identity also. Like I wanted to write the experience of a working class person in a big Indian city. And that was a technical challenge, right? Like how do I get the voice right and so on. So it was so, and I thought crime would give me a way to do that, where some of the genre conventions would actually help me and would actually guide me in that process. So this is basically me trying to write the story of a Dalit migrant worker in Bombay, trying to imagine that life that is really, really far removed from my own experience. But the work of writers before guided me and kind of held my hand, and I felt safe doing that. I didn't feel that I was in some raw act of appropriation or anything like that. I felt safe because of what Chandler had done, and there are many other American writers. For example, James Salis, who's a white writer whose main creation is a black character, right? And he's a detective across 6 or 7 of the novels. So I thought it is doable, other people have done it, and let me just try my hand to doing something which is way outside my experience and just fill the holes with my imagination and so on.
So I think the moment you came to a character like that, I think crime had to follow.
Yes.
Because the character gathered it around him like an outfit.
I ended up creating a very angry man in the first chapter, and then he had to do something, you know.
And the first chapter ends also with a very memorable line, life spits at you and I got used to the feel of spit or something like that.
Like life spits at you and I like spitting back. Spitting back.
Back, yeah. Asako, I just want to ask you, did you imagine all the while that you were writing this book how hugely successful it would be and how it would change your life as a writer?
そうですね、私は、いつもそうなんですけど、あまり日本の作家には好ましくない態度ですが、この本を書くときにこの本で自分がもっと売れたらいいなとか評価されたらいいなという気持ちは隠しきれません。でも意外なことにこの本は日本ではそこまで人気はありません。翻訳されたら世界的なベストセラーになってしまって、私は英語圏に自分の本を売り込んだことはないので、このようなことになって私は一番驚いています。
Obviously, it's coming to when you write a book, you may say that it get better evaluated or it can be sold. Those spirit is always inside a writer, right? Anyone's is there. But thing is, like this book has been not done very well in Japan, and when it's got translated and this much popularity it's got outside of the Japan, so what she thinks that if we translate in English or maybe her writing, if it's get translated, it can be recognized outside of the Japan is very well. So that's the thing she is still not able to believe it that this much popularity she got outside of the Japan.
Okay, I just want to connect now love and crime. In Tanuj's book, Sevaram Manji, he meets this hostess and he decides on a whim, a hormonal whim maybe, that he will follow the fate that follows. And in Asako's book, the moment Rika goes and meets Kaji, it goes beyond the crime that Kaji has committed. It goes into a kind of weird chemistry and a bonding between these two women, which is almost equivalent to sexual tension over food. So are murder and romance so connected, and is love the motive always? When there's a crime, is a love story always behind the crime, motivating that crime?
私はあまりクライムは書いたことがないんですが、ただ、例えばなんですけど、日本で桐野夏生の作品は英語圏でも人気があると思うんですが、もし、日本の女性が置かれた状況をエンターテインメントの中で書くとなると、やはり社会からの抑圧を何か一つ破る必要がある。それとクライムは相性がとてもいいんだと思います。私はラブストーリーというよりは梶と理香の友情の話だと思っているんですが、2人の友情が高まった結果、法に触れることに触れてに近づいていくっていうのは、日本社会において女性の置かれたプレッシャーだったり、そこからの解放を描くと、クライムに近づいてもらうものなのかもしれないなと今の質問で思いました。
Obviously, her reply is that she's not very much good at writing crimes. But if you say that like crimes like Kino Natsu, one of the writer which is quite popular and her work has been also translated a lot. If you say about like her work, Asako-san work, it is like a ladies' entertainment. If you consider it, it is may not be crime, but it is the sympathy between the Rika and the Kaji, which is continues over the food, and later it moves after the sympathy, right? And now if you say that we can relate it to crime, obviously it can be possible that we can relate as a crime those scenes in that book.
In my case, is love the motivation? So the way the protagonist is, the way his thought processes are, he doesn't think too far ahead anyway. And so for him, it is going to be impulses that drive the next action. And yes, of course, the first one is the heroine comes to him with a certain problem. And as you said, like because of a hormonal impulse or whatever it is, he decides like, might as well try to help her and see where it goes, or might as well go with her and learn what I need to do. And that's pretty much it for the first rung of action that happens. Turns out that she's deceiving him, and then the next set of motivations start. But if I was to write more in the genre, then I think I would tend to be on the side of crimes of passion more than cold-blooded crime, because for me, at least in my perception right now, I think that would become like setting a puzzle together. Whereas I'm more interested perhaps in psychologies, and so therefore, why do people do what they do when they do not intend to do it, or when their reasons for doing it are, you know, very ephemeral, or the decisions taken in an instant. And whether it's a murder or a theft, or, you know, just going out on a date or whatever, like I tend to be on that side and try to explore the moment rather than, you know, I guess one could plan a murder for 2 years and do a very thorough job of it, but somehow that's not been very interesting to me till now.
I agree with you, because I feel in real life, true life crime, which fascinates us so much, the fact that, you know, first they do the crime and then later in cold blood they decide how to get away with it. And both of that is interesting for us to trace it back to the moment where they felt all those things and they did that, you know. Now, I just want to compare, of course, like you've understood by now that they both have written vastly different books with very, very beautifully, I would say, layered plots which are very different from each other. But the styles that they come in with are very different. Tanuj has written in a very, I would say, self-edited, you know, very brevity has been kind of your god, and you've come to the point with every line. There's a punch in every paragraph. You've tried to give us no extra lines, no flab, in fact. So no fat, no flab, no butter in your book. And it's also very fast-paced. You know, you can visualize these people meeting and, you know, where they're meeting, how they're talking, what they're doing. You can guess. He hasn't really described so much their clothes except for the kimono thing, but you can still guess as to how they are dressed, how they are looking. Whereas in Asako's book, since food plays quite a big role, and it goes against all notions of feminism and shows how certain feminist concepts can be hollow, and how fat actually counters it with its very, very buttery texture and lovely, destructive almost kind of taste buds and food. So she has taken her time, Asako has taken her time to set the table, basically, to set the, you know, to lay the table for us as to how these conversations happen, how they slowly unfold, one small, simple recipe after another. So I just want for them to comment on their styles, because the styles are very different, very attractive in their own way, but total opposites. So Tanuj, to start with you, how did you come to this? And I feel you really worked on it. It can't have been, it's not, because it sounds very effortless, you know, it sounds like we are talking ourselves. But as a fellow writer, I know that to come to that particular natural way of talking, it's not easy. So how much did you sweat over it?
So the task that I set myself was, so it's a slim book, it's not a very big book. And the task, or I always had this fantasy that I should write a book that someone can read in 4 hours, or 3 to 4 hours, and in a single sitting. And that was the fantasy I was working with. And I thought that means that every, the per sentence information communicated, right? Like to put it in a mathematical equation, needs to be more. Like I need to find a way to say more in every sentence. There's no time to waste, and so on and so forth. And I think I got to the style largely through my reading. And I saw that other writers achieved it frequently. As I again go back to the American tradition, starting with Raymond Chandler, The Big Sleep, and so on and so forth. And you know, we remember, if some of you have watched those old noir black and white movies with, I forget the actor's name, very famous, but The Big Sleep and, you know, The Maltese Falcon and so on. We remember those heroes or those characters for their one-liners, and especially for their similes, you know, what they compare a given thing to. And every simile, when uttered by a character, what they liken a given thing to, what comes after like is very, very denotive of their world, right? It comes straight from their world. And I was very, very sure that Manji should not say anything that is not believable, and yet it has to have a certain aesthetic impact on the reader. So I really did have to, sweat it out. And I may not be able to talk very intelligently about how it happened, but some sort of osmosis happened with the works that I had been reading. The other thing I was very, very careful of is, because it is explicitly presented as an act of translation, it is a novel in first person narrated by Manji, but Manji is very, very clear in telling you that, hey, I'm actually not the speaker. There is a journalist friend of mine who has actually written this. But that journalist friend also has taken the onus upon himself not to put in words in Manji's mouth that would not be there. So the added problem of writing this novel was that my vocabulary has to be very, very limited. I can't use any very Englishy words, right? There cannot be a russet sunset or something like that. Like red has to be red. It cannot be vermilion or russet or anything of the sort. So the tough words had to go away. And I think any joy in the language that the reader gets, I reckon it must have been hard earned, worked over by the writer, but I can't talk, I think, very programmatically about what went behind it. It's a mystery to me as well as to how it happened, and I want to hold on to the mystery of it.
No, I think you created a kind of new literary language which is almost cinematic, because it's just two people, it's unvarnished, and they're talking, and the plot moves through their dialogue almost. Yes, Asako.
私はプロットは立てないで書くことがとても多いです。バターもそのやり方で書いてます。ただ、理科が梶真奈子と対峙する話であるということは決めてました。そして梶の命令に従ううちに彼女の支配下に置かれてしまうというところまでは決めてました。ちょっとだけ考えていたラストとして、理科は梶に取り込まれて理科はいなくなってしまう。そしてレイコが理科を探し始めるところで物語は終わるはずでした。私はさっき言ったようにとても打算的なところがあるので、日本の受ける小説というのは女性が死んでしまうか女性が消えてしまう、この2つが日本では、ミソジニ社会ですのでとても受けます。でもやっぱり私はそういうふうにできなかったということですね。
So obviously when you talk about the plotting those scenarios, right, when she was writing the butter, she has never prepared that what kind of the plot going to write, but there was in mind that Rika and Kazi is going to have one kind of fight, and that will be lead towards the when Kazi says that, okay, you have to do this work and that, and it converted into the ordinal signs of kind of situations where the Rika has to follow his orders, right? And those during doing those householding works, household works, suddenly the Rikas get disappeared, or Rico starts searching for those kind of plot. She was just considering in that way. But generally in the Japanese kind of literature or society, what they like is that if you're writing any ladies novel, it should be like your character either has to disappear or those ladies' character either have to die in the end. Then you'll get the sympathy. But somewhat it moved to the different way.
I particularly love the fact that Kazi tells Rika to get a particular imported slab of butter, and just like a very, very simple recipe of rice, soya sauce and this particular butter, and the entire very, very sensuous description of what will happen to that butter when it's put into hot rice. You know, it will first not melt, so it will melt in the mouth, and then the rice will start getting flavored with the butter. That minute attention to a grain of rice.
Yeah, obviously it is.
Yeah, I mean, I've never looked at a grain of rice so minutely.
食べたことがない。
soy sauce and butter rice. You ate never ate.
Did you try it ever?
No.
Try it. It's very delicious.
I think this book has impacted my relationship with butter, because I've always stayed away from butter, ghee, cheese.
I ate butter chicken curry tonight. This butter chicken curry is best butter chicken curry in my life. It's special and delicious. I want to cook this butter chicken curry in Japan. Try. でお米とバターは合うことが分かったから、絶対バター醤油ご飯は気に入るはずだって。昨日の夜食べたバターチキンはすごい美味しかったし、お米に合うから、きっとインドのバターもお米に合うはずだから、きっとこのレシピは気に入るって。
Yesterday night she had a butter chicken and the rice somewhere in the middle of the city near the UP city, and she liked a lot. What she is saying that once she go back and she will start preparing again butter rice kind of things. So the butter which we taste in India also, right? If you try to prepare with the soya sauce, definitely you will like it.
I would request both the authors to give us a sample of their reading from their books.
Okay. 思い出しながら、じゃあ、日本のメディアが最も大きく騒ぎ立てたのは、カジが美しくも、若くも、そして痩せてもいなかったことであった。女性がこのように、目立った事件を起こすのであれば、それは、男性を騙すためには、何かしらの魅力が必要なはずだとマスメディアは考えていた。それは日本の女性だったら早いうちから、子供の時からみんな意識していることだった。女性は絶対に男性を凌駕してはいけないし、プラスサイズなんてもってのほかで、それはみんなが内面化していることだったから、カジの登場は人々を驚かせた。
What the public found most alarming, even more than Kaji's lack of beauty, was the fact that she was not thin. Women appeared to find this aspect of the case profoundly disturbing, while in men it elicited an extraordinary display of hatred. From early childhood, everyone had it drummed into them that if a woman wasn't slim, she wasn't worth bothering with. The decision not to lose weight and remain plus-sized was one that demanded considerable resolve.
I'll read a segment from a dream that Sevaram Manchi has. His father is dead, but his father appears sometimes in his dreams, and there's a whole chapter in the book that is that dream. And I won't read all of it, but so the context is that in the dream, Sevaram Manji is doing his duty. He's outside the cafe and the father appears. What do you want? He asks his father. And a reminder that this whole conversation actually happened in Hindi, even in the dream, would be appropriate here. It's presented to you in a translation, so to speak. My father pointed inside with a slightly bent finger. Everything is inside, he said. You want to go inside? Yes. I can't let you. Why? Because you are sweating. He unwound the cloth wrapped around his head and started drying himself with it. Behind the neck, armpits, legs. When he was done, he said, now I'm not sweating. No, but you are stinking, I said. It was not that I had smelled anything inside the dream, but my memory told me that he was stinking, that he was always stinking. And my dreaming self decided at the spur of the moment that a stinking man could not be let inside the cafe. He put his hand under his dhoti right around the crotch and pulled out a deodorant from there. My mind felt a heat of confusion. It was the same deodorant that I had bought 3 years ago, the only one I had ever bought, and that my then roommate, a man named Ravan, had taken the liberty of using copiously. My father sprayed the deodorant all over himself, including the tummy. Now I'm not stinking, he said. Good, I said. Do you speak English? My father paused for a moment, then took a deep breath. How fao, shao shao, jam jao, kapao, khao lao, fish wish, he said. Oh, so you speak English too, I said. I was impressed, and so on and so forth, and the father gets inside.
We have just, I think, 4 minutes, so a quick comment from both of you. Crime has different connotations. Your book has kind of caste politics, and in Asako's book there is fat phobia. Men gaining weight is different from women. Butter is yellow and golden, but it comes from blood. It comes from animal blood. That's what it says in her book. So Tanuj, I'll ask you first. Sevaram is a Dalit who pretends to be a Jat. Socio-political aspects and caste play a big role in your story. So how deliberate is that?
Oh, very, very deliberate. And the context in the novel is that he assumes Jat identity because he's supposed to be a security guard, and apparently the agency that is hiring security guards prefers people with a certain surname. And so he gives a fake identity and gets the name. And this aspect of caste dynamics, you know, like if you talk to Mumbaikars, they will tell you that Mumbaikars are very proud of it also, that, you know, like the caste doesn't exist practically. If you ask a middle class Mumbaikar, they would practically say that. But that is so not true for the working classes in the city, and I wanted to highlight that, so that aspect is very, very intentional, yes.
Asako, Rika has ambivalent feelings about being a woman, how submissive she can look if she cooks, and how being slim and flat is an asset for women, and butter is the enemy. Your book itself resembles a block of butter. Actually, see, her book looks like it's yellow and it's like a block of butter. So, would you say modern day feminism has a complicated relationship with food?
そうですね、今日本では食べ物を描いた女性の小説はすごく人気です。とてもライトに読めるものからとても深いものというか、そうですね、深遠なシリアスなものまでいろんな作品が今女性と食に関する物語はとても今あります。というのは日本はインドも同じだと思いますが、女性が家事労働をやることが非常に多いですので、女性が自分のためもしくは同性の仲間のために料理を作るということはそれだけで家父長制に反することになります。 ですので、それはおそらくは日本は24時間空いているスーパーやコンビニも多いので、自分のために料理を作るっていうことはおそらく誰もがトライしやすい自由への獲得になり得るからだと思います。
Obviously, you will find these days like a lot of writers are there who is writing about the food and relationships as well, right? And it can be read very light way and have the detailed stories and the scenario where they have plotting seriousness as well. Those kind of novels are a lot in these days in Japan. If you compare with the Indian society as well, that in Japan ladies has to do a lot of household household work, and even see things in the India also we might have the similar situations. So for the same age, ladies are doing the household work, cooking. Although if you compare to the Japan, where you have the 24 hours convenience store, or you can get the easily food available. So you'll think that why I need to prepare for the others, I can go for just have a bunch of crunch, I can get it immediately for me. So that kind of situations is still there, but there is a free nuances is required to think over such kind of what is it, the pressure which is given through the societies.
Is there any time to ask the audience to ask questions? Then I welcome you all to a question, the two writers.
Hello, my question is for Asako-san. Because butter is a translated work, I'm sure there are plenty of things that were intended that they did not get across, but I'd like to ask about one of them. In Japanese, there's two different types of personal pronouns. There's watashi and there's ore. So I wanted to ask the characters that we are presented with, Kaji and Riko, what words do they use to refer to themselves? Which of these?
それは私を使います。
They use watashi.
そうですね、私は、この通り英語があまり得意ではないので、正直なところ英語で読んでそれが私にフィットする役かどうかはわからないですが、私は日本でバターを書いた時に、思ったような反応が得られなかったっていうことは今もあります。私はいつもそうで、小説を書いても思ったような反応が得られないんですね。それは今まで私の努力と才能が足りなかったんだと思ったんですが、ポリーが訳した瞬間、思ったような反応が世界中で得られたっていうのは、おそらく素晴らしい役なのからなのかなと、私の足りない部分を補ってくれているのかからもしれないと思ってます。
Obviously, as she is saying that I can't able to convey complete things in the English, and that is the knowledge of mine. But about the translations, as much as she understands, she is feeling good. Second thing is that whenever she is writing a book in Japan, the popularity she was expecting she is not able to get in Japan, but once it is got translated and it is read all over the world now, she is very happy with, she expects that the translator might be very good, that the reason it is getting popularity. And now onwards, she is going to put those effort in upcoming novels as well.
Yeah, so I have a question for both the authors actually. So the common point that I see between both your books is that in Asako-san's case, it's a novel that was actually translated, whereas Tanuj, in your case, you yourself said that this person thought of it in Hindi and then it's written down in English. So now that you're published and the public is reading these novels, do you think there's something that's been misunderstood, or you're like, hey, actually that's not how I meant it when I wrote it? Has there been a moment like that for either of you?
I think in my case it would be difficult anyway, because the translation, although the translation itself is an illusion, right? It is originally written in English, and so it carries the full weight of what I intended to convey. And if at all I claim that things are misunderstood, they are misunderstood because of the paucity of my expression. If I can, take it for Asako-san as well, I think she answered it broadly in the previous one. But yes, Indian writing in English, whenever its cast of characters includes people who don't do their business in English, right? There is an implicit translation at play, and it poses a particular technical challenge for the Indian writer in English. I mean, if we can broaden it to say the South Asian writer in English, perhaps African writers in English as well. And it is a tricky one, because the reader has to suspend their disbelief, first of all. They have to say, I understand they're actually speaking to each other in Hindi, but I get it in English. And that process is very similar for readers of Butter as well today. I mean, whoever is reading it in English, yeah.